Hello everyone. Welcome to our today's PowerPoint presentation on design patterns, part 2. This video is brought to you by Newton's Group of Institutions, Macharla. This is Arvind Egreddy from the Department of Computer Science and Engineering. In this video, we will discuss about creational patterns. Today, we are going to cover the topic from the book Design Patterns by Eric Gama and Pearson Education. In today's lecture, we will discuss the topics creational patterns, its introduction, and abstract factory. And in our next lecture, we will discuss about builder and factory methods. And in our third lecture, we will discuss about prototype and singleton. Creational design patterns abstract the instantiation process. They help to make a system independent of how its objects are created, composed, and represented. A class creational pattern uses inheritance to vary the classes that instantiated, whereas an object creational pattern will delegate instantiation to an other object. Here, the creational patterns become important as the systems evolve to depend more on object composition than class inheritance. As that happens, the emphasis shifts away from the hand coding a fixed set of behavior towards the defining a small set of fundamental behavior that can be composed into any number of more complex ones. Thus, creating objects with particular behavior which requires more than simply instantiating a class. So here there are two recurring themes in these patterns. First, they are all encapsulate the knowledge about which concrete classes the system uses. Second, they hide how the instances of these classes are created and put together so that all the systems at large knows about the objects in their interface as defined by the abstract classes. So consequently, the creational patterns, they give a lot of flexibility in what is getting created. So who creates it, how it gets created, and when it creates. So they let you configure a system with product objects that vary widely in the structure and functionality. So here the configuration can be static or it can be dynamic. That is, it is specified at compile time or it can be specified at the runtime. So here we have seen that creational design patterns, they abstract the instantiation process, and here they help to make the system independent of how the objects are created, composed, and represented. So here the creational patterns, they are so important because as the system evolved to depend more on object composition than the class inheritance. So here importance, if the system is evolved to depend more on object composition than on class inheritance. So here the emphasis which shifts away from hard coding a fixed set of behavior towards defining a small set of fundamental behaviors that can be composed into any number of more complex ones. So here this encapsulates the knowledge about which the concrete classes the system uses, or they hide how the instances of these classes are created and put together. Now, coming to what are creational patterns? So here, design patterns that deal with object creation mechanisms, they try to create objects in the manner which is suitable to the situation. So they make a system which is independent of the way in which these objects are created, composed, and represented. So recurring themes, they encapsulate the knowledge about which concrete classes and systems use, and they hide how the instances of these classes are created and put together so that we can change it easily in the later stages. So sometimes the creational patterns are competitors. For example, there are cases when either the prototype or the abstract factor could be used profitably. And at other times, they are complementary. That is, builder can use one of the other patterns to implement which components get built. So here, the prototype can use singleton in its implementation. So the creational patterns, they show how to make the design more flexible and not necessarily smaller. So in particular, they will make it easy to change the classes that define the components. Here, the biggest barrier to change lies in the hard coding the classes that gets the instantiated. So here the creational patterns, they provide different ways to remove the explicit reference to concrete classes from code that needs to instantiate them. Because the creational patterns are closely related, we will study all the five of them together to highlight their similarities and differences. Now, coming to the benefits of creational patterns. So, creational patterns, they let us program to an interface defining or defined by an abstract class. And they let us configure the system with product objects that vary widely in the structure and functionalities. And here the examples of GUI system is interview GUI class library, multiple look and feels, abstract factories for different screen components, and some more benefits of the creational patterns. So here the generic instantiation objects are instantiated without having to identify the specific class type in the client code. Example, the abstract factory or factory. Next, because of its simplicity, that is another benefit. So they make instantiation easier. So here the callers do not have to write long complex code to instantiate and set up the object. So here we use builders, prototype patterns, so on. And the third benefit is creation constraints. So here the creational patterns can put bounds on who can create objects and how they are created and when they are created. Now, coming to the abstract factory patterns. So here they provide a level of indirect direction that abstracts the creation of families of related or dependent objects without directly specifying their concrete classes. So here the factory object has the responsibility for providing the providing or creating services for the entire platform family, or the clients never create platform objects directly. They ask the factory to that need to create them. So this mechanisms makes enhancing product families each because the specific class of the factor object appears only once in the application. So where it is instantiated. So this application can wholesale replace the entire family of the product or simply by instantiating a different concrete instance of the abstract factory. So here, because the service provided by the factory objects is so passive, it is routinely implemented as a singleton. So here the abstract factory, they provide an interface for creating families of related or dependent objects without specifying their concrete classes. The intent is to provide an interface for creating families of related or dependent objects without specifying their concrete classes, which is also known as kit. Now coming to motivation. So here we need to consider a user interface toolkit that supports multiple look and feel standards such as Motif and Presentation Manager. So here different look and feels, they define different appearances and behavior for user interface. Here widgets like control or like scroll bars, windows and buttons. So to be portable across the look and feel standards, an application should not hard code its widgets for a particular look and feel. Now, here you can see that instantiation look and feel specify the classes of widgets through the application, which makes it hard to change the look and feel later. So we can solve this problem by defining an abstract widget factory class that declares the interface for creating each basic kind of widget. And there is also an abstract class for each kind of widget and concrete subclasses which implement the widgets for specific look and feel standards. So here, widget factories interface has an operation that returns a new widget object for each abstract widget classes. So here, when the client calls these operations to obtain the widget instances, but the clients are not aware of the concrete classes what they are using. Thus, the client stay independent of the privilege, look and feel. So here there is a concrete subclass of widget factory. So here you can see that there is a concrete subclass of widget factory for each look and feel standards. So here for each subclass which implements the operations to create an appropriate widget for the look and feel. For example, the create scroll bar or operation of the motif wedge factory, okay, instantaneous and returns a motif scroll bar, while the corresponding operation on the PM width factor. So here you can see the PM width factor which instantiates create scroll bar. So here this returns the scroll bar from the presentation manager. So here you can see the client what he does, he creates the widget slowly through a widget factory interface and have no knowledge of the classes that implements the widgets for a particular look and feel. So in other words, the clients only have to commit to an interface defined by the abstract classes, not a particular concrete class. A widget factory which also enforces the dependencies between the concrete widget classes. So a motif scroll bar should be used with the motif button and a motif text editor, and that a constraint is enforced automatically as a consequence of using the motif widget factory. Now, let us see the applicability. So, the use the abstract factory patterns when a system should be independent of how its procedures are created, composed and represented. And we use the abstract factory patterns when a system should be configured with one of the multiple families of products. And we use the abstract factory patterns when a family of related product objects is designed to be used together and when we need to enforce these constraints. And we also use the abstract factory patterns when we want to provide the class library of products and when we want to reveal just their interfaces or when not their implementation. So here, let us see the structure. Here, an abstract factory which defines a factory method per product, and each factory method, they encapsulate the new operator and the concrete. So here, the platform specific product classes and each pattern is then modeled with a factory derived class. Here, in this UML class diagram, the client class. So here the client class that requires product A and product B objects. So here, which does not instantiate the product A1 and product B2 classes directly. Here what they do, the client refers to the abstract factory interface for creating the objects, which makes the client independent of how the objects are created. So here you can clearly see that the factory one class implements an abstract factory interface by instantiating the product A1 and product B1 classes. The UML sequence diagram shows the runtime interactions. The That is, the client object calls the create product A on a factory one object, which creates and returns a product A1 object. Therefore, the client calls create product B on factory A1, which creates and returns a product B1 object. Now, who are the participants? So here, let us see some of the abstract factory participants. That is, abstract factory, which declares an interface for operations that create the abstract product objects, and the concrete factory, which implements the operations to create the concrete product objects, abstract product window or scroll bar. So they declare the interface for a type of the product object, and concrete product, here concrete motif window or motif scroll bar we use. They define the product object to be created by the corresponding concrete factory, and they implement the abstract product interface. And the last participant client used only interface that is being declared by the abstract factory and abstract product classes. Now, let us see the presentation remarks. Here, we often use a sequence of diagrams to show the dynamic interaction between the participants. So, for the abstract factory pattern, the dynamic interaction is simple, and a sequence diagram would not add much new information. Now, coming to collaborations. Normally, a single instance of concrete factory class is created at the runtime. So this concrete factory, they create product objects having a particular implementation. To create different product objects, clients should use a different concrete factory. So here the abstract factory differs creation of the product objects to its concrete factory subclasses. So the client may use the abstract factory interface to initiate the creation, or some other agents may use the abstract factory on the client's behalf. Now coming to the consequences, the abstract factory pattern has the following benefits and liberties. So here it isolates concrete classes from the client. This is the first one. So here the abstract factory patterns help us to control the classes of objects that an application creates, because a factory encapsulates the responsibilities and the process of creating the product object, and it isolates the clients for implementing the classes. So here clients manipulate the instances through their abstract interfaces, and the product classes names are isolated in the implementation of the concrete factory. So they do not appear in the client code. And the second one is it makes exchanging product families easy. So here the class of a concrete factory appears only once in an application, that is where it is instantiated. So this makes it easy to change the concrete factory of application users, and it can use different product configurations simply by changing the concrete factory, because an abstraction factory which creates a complete family of the products, the whole product family changes at once. So in our user interface examples, we can switch from motif widgets to presentation manager widgets simply by switching the corresponding factory objects and reacting the interfaces. The third one, the third consequence, that is it promotes consequency among the products. So when the products object is in a family are designed to work together, it's important that the application uses the objects from only one family at a time. So here the abstract factory, which makes this easy to enforce. And the fourth is supporting the new kind of products is difficult. So here extending abstract factory to produce the new kind of products is not that easy. That's because the abstract factory interfaces fixes the set of products that can be created. Supporting new kind of products requires extending the factory interface, and which involves changing the abstract factory classes and all of its subclasses. So we discuss one solution to this problem in the implementation section. Now, the abstract factory has the following liabilities. That is, adding new kind of products to the existing factory is difficult. So adding a new product requires extending the abstract interface, which implies that all of its derived concrete classes also must change. So here essentially everything must change to support and use the new product family. Abstract factory interface is extended. Derived concrete factories must implement the extensions, and a new abstraction product classes will be added. A new product implementations will be added, and client has to extend the user to use the new product. So here coming to the implementation. So here are some useful techniques for implementing the abstract factory patterns. So here first one is factories as singletons. So here an application typically which needs only one instance of concrete factor per product family. So it's usually the best method to implement as a singletons. And the second one is creating the products. So here abstract factory only declares an interface for creating the products, and it is up to the concrete product subclass to actually create them. So here the most common way to do this is to define the factory methods for each product. So here a concrete factory will specify its products by overriding the factory methods for each. While this implementation is simple, it requires a new concrete factory subclasses for each product family, even if the product families differ only slightly. So here, if many product families are possible, then the concrete factory can be implemented using the prototype patterns. So here the concrete factory is initialized with the prototypical instance of each product in the family, and it creates a new product by coding its prototype. So the prototype based approach, which eliminates the need for the new concrete factory classes for each new product family. So here is a way to implement a prototype based factory in Smalltalk, because the concrete factory stores the prototype to be cloned in a directory called as part catalog. So a variation on the prototype based approach is possible in languages that treat the classes as the first class objects. For example, Smalltalk and Objective-C, for example, we can take these two. So here we can think of a class in these languages as a degenerate factory that creates only one kind of product. And we can store classes instead of concrete factory that create the various concrete products in variables, much like prototypes. So these classes create new instances on the behalf of the concrete factory. So we define the new factory by initializing and an instance of the concrete factory with classes of products rather than by subclassing. So this approach takes an advantage of language characteristics, whereas the pure prototype based approach is language independent. So like the prototype based factory in Smalltalk, just what we have discussed, the class based versions will have a single instance variable path called catalog, which is the directory whose key is the name of the part. And instead of storing the prototype to the cloned part, catalog stores the classes of the product. Now the third is defining extensible factories. So here abstract factory usually defines the different operations for each kind of the product it is producing. So this kind of products are encoded in the operational signatures. Adding a new kind of product which requires changing the abstract factory interface and all the classes that depend on it. So a more flexible but less safe design is to add the parameter to the operations that create the objects, and these parameters specifies the kind of the object to be created. It could be a class identifier, an integer, or a string, or anything else that identifies the kind of the product. So in fact, with this approach, abstract factory only needs a single make operation with the parameters which indicate the kind of the object to be created. So this is the technique that is being used in the prototype and the class-based abstract factories, what we have discussed earlier. So this variation is easier to us in the dynamically typed languages like Smalltalk than in a statically typed languages like C++. So here we can implement this very easily in an dynamic languages like Smalltalk, please note. And it is very difficult with the statically typed languages like C++. So we can use it in C++ only when all the objects have the same abstract base class, or when the product objects can be safely concerned to the correct type of the client that requested them. Because the C++ having a statically typed language, we need to take a special care when we use the C++ language. So here the implementation section of a factory method shows how to implement such parameterized operations in C++. But even when no pressure is needed, an inherent problem which abstracts the interfaces to give a return type. So the client will not be able to differentiate or make safe assumptions about the class of the product. So if the client needs to perform a subclass which is specific operations, they won't be accessible through the abstract interface. Although the client could perform a downcast, that's not always feasible or safe, because the downcast can fail it. So this is the classical trade-off for a highly flexible and extensible interfaces. Now let us see the known uses. So interviews use the kit suffix to denote the abstract factory classes. So it defines widget kit and dialog kit abstract factories for generating the look and feel specific user interface objects. So here interviews also include a layout kit that generates a different composition objects depending on the layout that is being described. So for example, a layout that is conceptually horizontal may require different composite objects depending on the document's orientation. So we know that the document orientation, which can be portrait or landscape. So it depends on the layout what we are using. Here, ET++, which uses an abstract factory patterns to achieve the portability across a different Windows systems. It can be Windows or SunView, for example. And here, the Windows system that abstracts the classes defines the interface for creating the objects that represent the Windows system resources. Make a window, make font, to make color, are some examples what we can take. So here, concrete subclasses implement the interfaces for a specific Windows system, and at runtime, this ET++ creates an instance of the concrete Windows system subclass that creates the concrete system resource objects. Now coming to the related patterns, abstract factory classes are often implemented with the factory methods, but they can also be implemented using the prototype. So here the concrete factory is often a singleton. Thank you. If you have any queries, please mail me at arvind.ynd@newton.edu.in. And here we have seen some examples like a skeleton example, which is an abstract factory structure or skeleton code. Neural net examples, neural net physical structures, neural net logical structures, and simulated neural net examples. So thanks. If you have any doubts in this particular topic, you can mail me at arvind.ynd@newton.edu.in or call me at 9494470795. So in the next video, we will discuss about the builder and factory methods. That's all for now. Thank you all. If you like this video, please subscribe to my channel and press the bell icon for the latest notifications. Thank you one and all.